Hi, everyone. Boy, it's been a crazy week. So, I wanted to go over the attempted assassination of Donald J. Trump and where it happened, and also how it ties into the Kabala path of the right ear, which I did classes on all that on the Kabbalah star. But what's fun, once you understand some of these maps, you can kind of decode reality because you understand what the underlying sentiment is of those symbolisms. So Trump got shot in his right ear. I was actually away. I was on out of town, so I couldn't get this video out earlier for you, but here we go. Let's get into it because it happened on July 13th, and this is a very important day, and it happened at 6:11 in the evening at Butler's Farm Showground. So we're going to get into the name of the word Butler and the meaning of July 13th, why July 13th was so important. So butler in French is, everybody thinks of the butler as the guy that serves food, right? But in French, it actually means the cup bearer. Okay, so the cup meaning that your cup is full of ambrosia, which is wine, right? So ambrosia is sometimes known as or referenced as wine. So it's a wine vessel. And in Old French, Bouteiller was used for the Virgin Mary as a dispenser of the cup of mercy. And this is really important. This whole ritual that happened was really worshiping the Virgin Mary, and we'll tie the July 13th into that. And I did some little bit of history search here about the name of the town, Butler, and it was in reference to a guy that patented in 1862 a gun not used in the American Civil War until Petersburg Campaign. So it was used in the war, but not until June 1864 and as an independent initiative of the U.S. General Ben Butler. That's what the town is named after. So let's look at July 13th, just on the zodiac wheel, the sidereal zodiac wheel, which is what's actually happening in the sky. It's not tropical astrology that I study. It's all to do with sidereal, which if you take an app and look up at the sky, you'll see this is very accurate. Okay, now what is most important to me is the moon, and we'll go into that because the right ear is tied to the moon path. And we'll look and see where in Virgo this was happening in my next slide. The ascending was Scorpio. Now, Scorpio is known as the kiss of death. I had mentioned this a few years ago that most likely there would be an assassination attempt on Trump, and it would be tied into the constellation Scorpio because it has to happen. Scorpio has to be involved, and being on the ascendant at the time that it happened is really relevant because Scorpio, sometimes they use the symbol of Scorpio as like lipstick. When you see lipstick in a movie video or in a movie, that's referencing Scorpio. It's because it's known as the kiss of death, Scorpio, right? Because the Scorpio bites you. Or the scorpion, sorry, bites you. So now this is Pluto. Now, why is this so important? Because Pluto is back in this location since the founding of the United States. He's just gone into Capricorn. Okay, he's in retrograde right now, but he's still in Capricorn. And this is the devil, right? The devil card is ruled through Capricorn. So that's very important. So we'll go and see in the sky so you can see it actually in the constellations, how it looks. So the sun is in Gemini. Venus is at the back end of Cancer. This is the Tegman star right here. Mercury is actually right in the middle path between the two pillars, right? In Freemasonry, the grace pillar, the moon pillar is ruled by Cancer because the moon rules Cancer. And then the sun rules Leo. So these are the two pillars. So we had Mercury, your mind is in between the two pillars. This is very important. And where the moon is very important. This is on the Spica star, and this represents the Washington Monument, this star. I've explained this before. The star Boots, it's up in here, is the White House, and this star here, Regulus, is the Capitol building. There's a triangle that the Freemasons built Washington, D.C. regarding this. Okay, so that was interesting. And I always follow Osiris because he's the king that dies and gets born again. And Osiris was in Sagittarius, which is the higher mind. Sagittarius rules the ninth house, the higher mind. And Saturn is just in Aquarius, starting to move into Pisces, but he's still in his own house. And because he rules Capricorn and Aquarius. And then Mars is just coming into, well, he's still in Aries, and that's his house. So that's the crown chakra. And then Jupiter is in the Silver Gate between the horns of Taurus. So let's go see all about this July 13th day. It's tying into the Rosa Mystica. It's an apparition that happened with a nun that saw the Virgin Mary. And that title of Our Lady, which, I live in Quebec, and just about every town has a street called Notre Dame. That's Our Lady. So it's all tied into this apparition that was seen by this nun. And it happened on July 13th in 1947. The grand apparition of noted that Perina's diary, the Blessed Virgin Mary, was accompanied by the Blessed Sister Maria Crucifissa de Rosa, and Our Lady appeared to be splendidly different manner in a white dress and with a white cape around her head that reached to the floor, and 3 swords were on the floor, and on the chest of the Virgin were 3 roses, 1 white, 1 red, and 1 gold. So I think they've done a ritual to the Virgin Mary. And if you have purchased my book already, you'll know the importance of how the Virgin Mary is tied into everything. And, it's very important because it represents the divine feminine, right? So the main feast day of the Virgin Rosa Mystica is July 13th, but sometimes they use October 13th. And that would be close to when the sun is on the Spica star, where the moon was on July 13th, on that Washington Monument star. And it's called the Hour of Grace. Well, that would be in December. It's called the Hour of Grace, but Mary is the most beautiful flower ever seen in the spiritual world. It is by the power of God's grace that from this barren and desolate earth, there ever sprung up at all flowers of holiness and glory. And Mary is the queen of them all. She is the queen of the spiritual flowers, and therefore is called the rose. For the rose is called of all flowers the most beautiful, but moreover, she is the mystical or hidden rose, for the mystical means hidden. Okay, so it's the hidden knowledge, the rose. And we also know the DNA. If you look at a strand of DNA going straight down the ladder from the top view, it looks like a rose. Okay, now what's fascinating is when Trump, when this happened, I was in this church. Was visiting Three Rivers in Quebec, and this church is a sanctuary worshiping the Virgin Mary. And it just blows me away that I was there when this happened on July 13th, okay, at 5:16. I'd just taken these pictures of the stained glass because Ave Maria, is the Virgin Mary. This symbol is the Virgin Mary symbol. It's like an M or a W and an A. So it's basically an A and an M, but it kind of, in a way, can look like a W, like the Queen of Heaven, like they say she is, like the Queen, right? That's Cassiopeia constellation, is the Queen of Heaven. But I had noticed they had a Templar cross in the church. So I was like, oh, wow, this is really esoteric. So I took the picture, went downstairs in the basement, and was sitting with some friends eating some ice cream. And I was looking across, like I was facing a screen that they had in the cafeteria of a big television screen, and I could see a Trump rally being, you know, shown. And I was like, why is a Trump rally being shown in Three Rivers in Quebec? And I wasn't really paying attention to it because I couldn't hear it. But it, then later on, I found out what happened. So I was kind of like, wow, that is so weird that I was in the Virgin Mary Sanctuary Church when all that went down. I thought it was bizarre. So then I started digging into it. And then if you look at the video of when he's doing his rally, this was hilarious. He's pointing at Vincent Fusca, right? Vincent Fusca's back in the crowd. He hasn't been there for years, but he's pointing for a long period of time. If you haven't watched the video, you should go watch it. It's hilarious. He's standing there pointing his nose in Trump's finger, that making it obvious that he's a very important character in all this. So then, when all the shooting was going on, he's just sitting there, perfectly calm. He's got a picture of Trump on him. And, I just thought it was like, wouldn't you be ducking if there was gunshots going on and the Secret Service was coming out? No, he's just sitting there calmly. So I find it all very amusing. So this picture is kind of what the media took and ran with. But if you look at the video, there is no flag anywhere in sight when he's coming off the stage. Like this is, I guess, photoshopped in. Now, why is it upside down? Because this symbol of the upside down flag is, disdain or distress that the Navy's ships used to use when their ships were in distress, but when it started to become very popular was during the Civil War. So for the Confederates to be using. Okay, so the Patriots would put their flag upside down because they, weren't happy with the British coming in and putting tax on the US citizens. So this picture was the picture that the media flew with, and you can see everybody's looking pretty serious. But there's also this other picture somebody, I guess, thought it was funny to make, and they all put smiles on their face, kind of like, we know this is kind of like a psyop, right? Or could be a psyop. So Trump's coat of arms is that same image of him holding his fist up. So, that's his symbol, and it basically means justice. Now, what I want to go into is the right ear path. I had, Amber had made me this whole graph of this Kabala star. This is really important. I did a class on it. You can go purchase the whole graph if you want through the class and understand what all the paths mean. But these are all Hebrew letters. I decoded them all, and it's very important to kind of understand this. And then you can kind of decode reality easily. This path is the Gimmel path, and it's ruled by the moon and the high priestess card. Okay, it's right here on this. This is the symbol here. Okay, and on this star part here. So let's get into this and kind of understand what this path means of the right ear. So it's between the Kiffer and the Tippereth, which is the middle of the tree. I'll show you that later. It's the pillar of the equilibrium, which is basically the middle path. Okay, so we're getting on the middle path here. And what she's saying here, this lady, yeah, basically just saying it's the middle path. You have to balance the white and the black. The path of balance on the middle, containing with itself the pairs of opposites in equilibrium, the black and white pillars, the light and dark side of the moon. Okay, because it's ruled by the moon. Now, this is the path right here. Okay, it's 1 to 6, and you have the diath in there. Okay, now that's the way out of here. Okay, so this path, this is like the door to get out. It's actually, in a lot of imagery, it's kind of behind the tree. So it's really partly to do with the doorway. So it corresponds with the body, the human body. In the brain, the diat is represented by the colostrum, which is very important. And you would understand that if you buy my book, the importance of all that, and your oil going up your spine every month. and how that all symbolizes our symbolisms to religion, okay, characters and the religion. And they're saying here it's all about consciousness and knowledge. Okay? Now, this is called the 13th path in the Kabbalah. It's called unity directing consciousness, unity intelligence, conductive intelligence of unity. It is called this because of the essence of glory. It represents the completion of the true essence of the unified spiritual beings. So it's really about balancing, right? It's all about being in balance and not getting stuck on either pillar, like the right or the left pillar. So I have a book of Kabbalah, and this is the Gimmel. The animal associated, or the English equivalent, is the camel. And here you can see it's the moon path, 1 to 6. And what's funny is they did a cognitive test for Trump, and they made him point at a camel and say camel, right? And this was in May 22nd, 2021. So it's kind of funny that that popped up. I just found that a funny coincidence. And, knowing that that's all part of the consciousness, right? So it's like they want you to get tied up in the whole Civil War thing so that you end up basically creating that. And I think they are trying to create that to see if souls will continue to take sides, or if you just like kind of try to find your inner peace through all of this. And that's really the whole importance of it, is finding your inner peace. And I like this slide, because after a silent pause, Mary, the mystical rose, stretched open her arms and white mantle as a gesture and a sign of her protection, revealing again that these 3 roses upon her chest, and saying sweetly to Purina, that this is the nun that had this apparition, live for the sake of love, as Our Lady slowly disappeared from sight. And that's what this is all about, right? Is finding that middle path. And I just encourage you guys to just stay in detachment to the movie that's being played out, even though it's fun. It's fun. It's fascinating. It's like mind-blowing, but it's all about knowing you're protected if you are on the middle path. And that's really this whole event happening on July 13th, and its association with the middle path and the right ear and the Butler wording all ties into the Virgin Mary, and July 13th being the apparition of the mystical Rosa, the Virgin Mary. It can't be all coincidental. It has to be there for the higher mind to see the divine glory in it all. So I hope you guys are in peace and you're in bliss and you're enjoying, and whatever you need to feel protected, you're on that path. And I encourage you to keep learning the Hermetic knowledge. If you're interested in my classes, give me an email at crystal-tyme24@gmail.com, or check out my book. It's only $10, and it's fascinating because it goes into all these ley lines and the history and the Paris Olympics and how important that is, and all the symbolism there with Jupiter, and just everything about what's going on. And I'm going to drop a link in the description box about a little clip that came up about Trump asking somebody in the audience who they would want to have as vice president. And the person that he pointed to was a European. And he says, well, I'm a European. I don't really have a say. And Trump says, oh, would you like to have Macron as my vice president? And he was quite serious when he said it. And I know the French is all part of this, because if you understand the history of the founding United States, you will know that the French made it happen, okay, for the patriots. And there has to be some balancing about how the French in Canada got taken over by the British. And I know the Americans came up and tried to free the French, the patriots of the French New France, but it didn't happen. And I do believe somehow that has to be all balanced, because there's no way the French should be under rule of the English, especially since they were living in harmony with the natives. And, Amherst came and deported them all and sent them down to Louisiana and back to France. So, because they didn't want the French living in harmony with the natives. So it's a very in-depth story, and you have to understand the native story. You have to understand the whole trying to convert the natives and how that was all done here in Montreal, and the importance of this Paris Olympics. It's very, very important. It is all tied to the founding of the United States. So I wish you all the best, and bliss to you all. Take care.